Hi everyone, we are here today, August 19th, 2020, to honor our mother. Mom is 93 years old, and in her lifetime she has many amazing stories that she would like to share with her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. So everyone enjoy the history of Beatrice Florence Bressard Lavalley. So Mom, we are going to start this off by asking you a few questions starting back when you were really young. So can you please tell us when and where you were born?
North Sparks, New York, up in Canyon's Corner,
In the year?
1927.
Very good. You had 3 sisters, Mom, and 2 brothers. Can you name them from oldest to youngest?
Eldora, Arthur's sister Rita, which was her name Irene, and myself, which was Beatrice, and then it was Alvin and Rita.
That's right. Very good, Mom. Okay, Mom, your next question's going to be, when you were kids at home, what did you do for fun?
I can't say working hard, but we jumped rope, and I remember the time Grandpa Bressard made us some stilts. And we'd all stand against the barn, and which one we'd race, which one could get to a certain place the fastest on
On the stilts.
stilts.
That sounds like fun. Did you ever win?
Yeah, and sometimes we'd lose our balance and fall too, and we thought that was really funny.
Okay, seeing you were born in 1927, what was life growing up without electricity, no washing machines, no refrigerators? What was it like in the 1935, 36?
It was okay because we were brought up, might as well say nothing, but we were always happy. I can remember going on a rock, picking blueberries for 3 cents a quart. We had 1 cow, so we had our milk. We'd keep the cream, and then we had a butter churn, and we'd make our own butter. And we did all the canning, and at that time we thought it was fun. And it's something, as you get older, you realize all the help that you did to help your parents out. And we had to learn to respect our parents comparing to what they do today, the kids do today.
You remember the prices of food? Like how much was
We
the
used
loaf
to
of
buy
bread?
bread from the Canadian in Chrysostom for 3 cents a loaf. We didn't have to buy our milk. We didn't have to buy our potatoes. We didn't have to buy our meat. We raised our pork. We raised beef. We had our own cows for the milk.
And had a garden and,
And we
grew your
had a
own
garden, and
vegetables.
we were happy doing this. We didn't care about picking up the weeds, but we had to in order to
eat.
in order to help our parents. So we learned the hard way, but today I can thank God what we had. We had wonderful parents.
Okay.
How did you keep things refrigerated back then?
At that time, people used to go to Arona, which was next to Altona, and they used to sell ice, great big chunks of ice at the milk station. And so we put that, we always had like a pantry, but it was dug in a black muck. And we'd keep our butter in old-fashioned stone jars. And everything that wasn't canned, we used to keep all this down. Probably our cellar was about 4 feet deep, the highest. We had to go down a pair of old wooden stairs. And my mother used to love to cook, so she'd make cookies and donuts and put them in there. So the little bits you never knew, we'd go in anytime, and the first thing you know, those jars were empty. And believe me, we got punished for it.
So you were bad. Okay, now we're gonna get to the fun part. Where did you meet Dad?
This is really funny. I think it was, but then after I didn't think it was funny. I met him at his girlfriend's birthday party because she was a neighbor to us and I was invited also. So while he was there, he asked me if I wanted to dance because it was an old-fashioned kitchen. And he says, could I see you on Sunday? And then on Sunday I said, oh boy, what a double crosser you are.
But you went with him anyway.
But I went with him. And I always felt bad, and I always remembered this because I would have been, I think, a little angry. I'd have been his girlfriend. Probably worse than being angry.
Oh well, she got over it.
I hope she got over it because she did find another nice man.
When did you get married? And what was your wedding like?
We got married in 1943. And our wedding, we got married at 9 o'clock at St. Anne's Church by Reverend Arthur Gilbert. And I'm talking about 77 years ago. I was really young, but in the olden days, I think when you turned 15, 16, you were growing up. You had to learn how to do things. And growing up, we had a lot of fun. The matter, it was hard work.
Okay, so
What was your wedding dress like? Did you have a special wedding dress?
And our wedding dress,
we have a picture of it.
we have a, can I get this picture?
Sure, why not? You were just 16 years old, we have to remember that.
Yeah.
Well, I was 16, but I turned 17 in June.
Up there, Mom, on the glass of the cabinet.
I can see it from here.
Okay, he's got it, Mom. That was her wedding dress.
There wasn't hardly any girls got married, and in fact, probably we couldn't do it today, but at that time I got this all in Chrysostom. All my wedding clothes, it was powder blue, which I love blue.
Did you have a big wedding?
We did have a big wedding. We were about 100 of us. And in those days, they didn't have like big dance, big places like they do today. So Mother stayed home and she did all the cooking for at least 100 people.
And that was very nice.
And it was all homemade cooking. And I didn't think of it then, but now, at my age, how hard this must have been for her to do all this hard work.
Mhm.
So I owe it to you, Mother and Dad.
Okay, Mom, do you remember much about World War II?
Oh, wait, we gotta find out who she married. Who'd you marry?
I married Wilford Lavalley from Horse Parks. In
Thanks, Kelly.
fact, a lot of time we used to meet. It was just a little distant across the fields, and there was an apple tree. So believe me, once in a while we'd sit there. My mother'd say, "You took a long time to come home," but I think she realized we wanted to rest.
How old was Daddy? In his early 20s?
Daddy was 20 when he got married, so he had to have his mother sign for him because his father was deceased.
How old was he when you met?
Oh, he was 6 years older.
6 years
He
old.
was 21.
So did you court very long? Did you date very long? Or did you get married right away?
Now, we dated for over a year.
Not bad. Okay. Do you remember much about World War II?
That I can't see why, I can't remember that.
You would have been about 15, 14, 15.
I should remember, but
You know, it's okay.
Well, rationing, you remember the rationings probably? Rationing food and
Yeah, the food,
Yes.
gas, you must remember that part of
I
it.
can remember the gas. We had a gas station across the Cedar Inn on Route 11, and it was called Esso's, Shorty's Esso Station. We were selling our gas. Regular was 29 cents a gallon, and the other one, the super, was 39 cents a gallon. We were paying only 42 cents a gallon for our oil.
So what did you and Daddy do for jobs when raising us kids?
We were on the farm, started on the farm. In fact, we run the Wilson farm in Shizee. And we had wonderful neighbors down that way. In fact, some of them were the Castines.
so were you on the Ridge Road then in Champlain actually?
Yes, we were.
Where Howard Hughes ended up?
And so we stayed there 4 years working under Doris and Wilson was the name of those people we worked for 4 years. And we had to draw our water from the barn, the drinking water, by pails full to bring it to the house. And we had an old-fashioned hand pump that we'd use for water and heat up our water on the stove. We had a Kalamazoo stove and did all our cooking in those ovens. We had stove, which I don't think the younger generation would know what we're talking about, had reservoirs. So we'd fill up the reservoir full of water to warm up the water, to even take a bath, wash all our dishes, and then we'd put a pan of water on the stove to warm up, to wash our floors, and even wash on the scrub board. So it wasn't easy, but when I think of it today, I'd go back to the old days anytime.
Is this where, on the Wilson farm, is that where you had Margaret?
I had Margaret on the Wilson farm, and but she was born, I started with Marguerite on the Wilson farm, but then I had all my children at home. I had 4 of the girls all at home, and I had midwives. We had midwives at that time. And then, starting from Maryland and Ruby,
No, Marilyn,
Marilyn and Norma
and Paul.
and Paul, decided to go to the hospital.
Okay, just want to point out where the Wilson farm is. It's on the Ridge Road. It's at the, I'd say, southwest end of the Matot Road, and it's just a little bit.
Yes,
a little
in
bit
fact,
beyond.
we lived neighbor to a lady called Edith Matat.
Who was on the Matot Road.
And then I find out in later years that some of the people I know today lived there, but I never knew it then. And we really became friends when we started to talk about the good old days on the farm, on the Wilson farm.
Do you remember the craziest thing you've ever done? Or got in trouble for, or want your kids to know?
What was that question?
What's the craziest, funniest thing you've ever done?
I wouldn't call it funny, but it's the time I went swimming. I was only 9 years old. Of course, at 93, you've got a hard time to remember all this.
That's
I'm
okay.
trying my best.
Take your time, you're doing
So
fine.
my oldest brother and my oldest sister went swimming and they could do the back float. So I thought I'd be smart and do what they were doing. So all of a sudden I slipped on the slippery rock and down I went. And when my sister noticed me, I was going down for the third time. And at that time, I didn't even think there was a heaven up there that if I passed away, I'd either go up or down. So I've been scared of water. Not to take a bath or wash up in today, but at that time I really was scared of water and I still wouldn't go swimming because I'm still scared of water.
Okay. For the grandkids and the great-grandkids that never got a chance to meet Dad, how would you describe Dad to them?
I would describe them that he was always jolly, he was always saying the joke. He tried to, one of the things he used to like is put the grandchildren, we had a couple ponies, I'd say, or young horses, so they'd like to go on horseback rides. So every afternoon, we'd take them just around the house to show them how to ride a horse.
So you would
And the
say,
funniest part, we had a clothesline. And sometimes the kids never noticed the clothesline, so the horse would get caught in the clothesline and down the kids went, and I think the kids would laugh over this stuff.
so you would want the grandkids and that to know that their grandfather was a happy, jolly, fun-loving man.
Yes.
Absolutely. Back to the jobs that you and Dad did when you were raising us kids. Daddy was a farmer. He sewed gas, and you and him both worked at Aris Labs, correct?
We did, but before then, it wasn't funny because in order to make both ends meet, we were picking potatoes up to Chateauguay on the Guyon farm and other farms that raise potatoes for $2 a day. And on $2, but the $2 then was just as much as probably 20, 25 today. Because food was cheaper, so I'd say it was like a comparison life. We didn't make much, but we were happier then than we are now because it broke down to the same thing because the money, the stuff, the items we bought was so cheap that our $2 would take us just as good as $20 today, especially when you're going to the store. We didn't have stores. We probably had one store out in the country for all the town of Moores, the village of Moores, rather. The town of Moores and the village of Moores Fork on Route 11. And this was a new road they put in when we moved up on the Row farm across the Cedar Inn. Now I'm sorry, but I can't remember where I left off. But I hope that I'm forgiven.
You're okay, Mother, you're fine. So Dad left us in July of 1981, and you lived alone. You did very well. Paul was still at home. Paul and George were both still to home.
And Norma. No.
No, Norma
Paul
was
and
married,
George.
Paul and George. Okay, what would you like people to remember you? What would you want people to remember you as?
I don't know how many people thinks that. I would want them to remember that
How do you want to be remembered?
as a jolly person, And I always was the life of the party.
Okay.
No matter where I went, they'd even clap. If we went to a wedding, if we went and listened to band somewhere, they'd always, and I'd say, what are you clapping for? Are we glad you're here? You were always the life of the party.
That's good, Mother. That's very good. Now, I asked each one of your children a question that they wanted to ask you. They don't know why, but they each have a question for you. Marguerite wants to know how you knew Daddy was the one.
The chemistry was there.
Okay. Beverly would like to know what was the most fun you had.
Playing harmonica, and I can remember Dad playing violin, which his name was Fred Bresser, and he always wanted to put me to play harmonica, and one night he couldn't find it, so I said, Dad, I think there's such a thing as a drum. So I went in the pantry and I got an old dishpan. So I took 2 heavy steel spoons and I was banging on that thing. The little bit that I didn't know, I made a few nicks in the pan, which I got scolded by Mother shortly after.
Okay. Ruby would like to know the one thing you remember doing with us kids. What do you remember doing with us kids?
We would, I'd even play tag with you.
Okay.
Hide and go see, jump rope, and sing Skip Mama Lou My Darling. I guess that was the name of the song then,
Okay.
but I haven't heard it since I'm married.
I would like to know if there was one thing you could change in your lifetime, what would it be? If you could change something. Anything you want to change that you wish you could have?
No, because I was happy what I was doing.
Okay. Norma said she would like to know if you had one last wish, what would the wish be?
If I had one more wish, I wish I could live probably to 100. Because there is a lot that I've noticed are living longer than what they used to for some reason. I know their minds sometimes don't work as well.
So your wish is to live to be 100.
Well, not really, because God knows the day that we're supposed to be called home. And I wish that St. Peter's up there is ready to open the door for me, or when I do go, that he says, welcome, that I have to go back down
To take
and
care
work-
of your kids.
to take care of my kids.
Anyone in particular? Okay, that's next question. Paul wants to know what it was like raising one boy with all the girls.
Well, my daughter's always told me that I spoiled Paul, and I can't see it. Because I don't give him attention, I don't think as much as I do the girls.
Well,
But that's up to my girls, if that's what they think, it's fine
your
with
daughters
me.
would disagree, but what was it? And George, for those of you that don't know, George is a foster child that Mom took in at 9 years old.
Not
And
only Mom, Dad did too.
Okay, and George would like to know why you ever got into wanting to take in foster children.
It wasn't only George, I'd say we probably took care of 50 foster children. We also took in runaway kids. And I loved every one of them. All of these foster kids, your father and I, we took them as our own, we took them under our wings, we wanted to give them all the love we could give them. But I do have to say that I had one called Mike. So one day the principal called me up from school and said he wasn't at school, his name was Mike. And I always remembered this. So Mildred Waddell from Moore's was the caseworker at that time. So she comes to the house and she says, you know, if we can't find him, we'll have to get the troopers. At that time, they used trooper more than cops. And finally, Mike heard her, and we had a silver maple tree that was higher than the roof of our house. So when Mike heard the caseworker say we'd have to get the troopers to look for him, he just hollered out, "Mother, I'm up here." So when he got down, the caseworker said, well, I think he should be punished. But I just couldn't punish him. I just was so happy that he was home.
So you had a lot of love to give, besides your 7 children, you had a lot of love to keep
give
giving
all
to
to the other
foster
foster
children.
children.
Very nice, Mother. And Mom, your family, and we all agree, we talked, and the greatest gift that we feel you and Dad gave to all of us was the gift of faith. To live by God's word. The only way we were ever able to move forward after losing Dad, Russell, and Joanne was because of our faith. And that we are so thankful for you and Dad, for the
And
gift
I
of
do have to
faith.
mention about Joanne, because she wasn't mentioned at the beginning of this, that she was her father's farmerette, as an old saying. She loved the outside on the tractors, even one day. And it was always one of the girls that didn't like it because she never did dishes. Well, I used to say she can't do dishes and help her father in the barn. So one morning she gets up, so she went into school, so she was trying to hurry. Up the plank she goes, tipped it upside down on the manure pile. So when she came back, she had a good excuse that she could not go to school.
Joanne was our oldest sister that passed away in 2019. And we know the pain, Mom, that you felt when you lost Daddy and Joanne. But just know that they are both in your heart and they are so very, very proud of you.
And I also want to say, I don't know if everybody feels the same. You do love your husband or your wife, your spouse I should use. But when it comes losing your children, I've had the experience with both. And when you lose a child, no matter what age you are, what age they are, forgive me, Lord,
It's okay. You're okay.
it really hurts. But I love my 7 children, plus 8 with George, that I took under my wings.
And your children all love you. And Mom has got some pictures here of some of her family that has served in the military. They're on the table over there. She's got her brother Arthur, Joanne's son Jeffrey, and Clifford Sterling, my late husband Russell.
Did your name Uncle Art?
Yes, I did, Mom.
And there might have been others that I'm sure that there was a lot of uncles, my mother's brothers, that was in the service in the old days.
On the hutch, we have a picture of my mom's family. That was her mom and dad, her brothers and sisters, and that was taken in 1946. We have my father's family picture way over to the right. My father there was 10 brothers, 2 sisters. That was taken in 1931. My dad was 9. The middle picture is 1968. That was my parents' 25th wedding anniversary. We have Margaret, Joanne, Beverly, Ruby, Marilyn, Norma and Paul, and Mom and Dad. And we have a little picture of my mom when she was a teenager, about the age she met Dad. And then we have a couple pictures of Mom and Dad. There's a picture of them two going skiing or skating one time, and their wedding picture. And at this time, we want to thank...
Just a minute. I'd like to pick up this picture here. I was only 14 then, and this is when I was going to Altona School. And believe it or not, I got a son, Paul. Now they got the prison, and they use a high school that we had in Altona, where I went to school. They had wonderful teachers. And never dreamt that someday that this would turn into a prison. So I got my son Paul working there, my grandson Justin, his son, working there. And today, my son Paul tells me where his office is. And it happened to be in the same room as when I was in 8th grade.
Okay, that's very good, Mom. And we want to thank you so much for doing this interview with us today. A very special thanks to Calvin Castine for being the one videoing this.
Calvin always did a good job, especially with Bob Venn.
Now Mom's going to give Calvin a little plug.
And I can remember Calvin's parents, his uncle, when we lived on the Ridge Road in Chusey. And I have to say, what a wonderful father and mother that Calvin had. So they must have did a good job bringing up their boys. And they had one daughter, Marshall Castine's wife. I'm trying to think of her name.
Marguerite,
same name as my oldest daughter. And they were such wonderful neighbors. So I do have to thank Calvin for the good job that he's done. I used to watch him every weekend on TV whenever he had a program, especially with Bob Venn, because it was Bob Venn when Sister Rita came back home from Africa that we celebrated her 50th Jubilee at St. Mary's Academy, I should say. And we're so proud of Calvin Castine. Keep up the good work, Calvin.
Thank you, Mother.